everyone, and welcome back. Today, we are going to do a deep dive into a topic that's been getting a lot of attention in the wellness world lately:
Yeah, it really have.
fasting for better health.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might be thinking about this for weight loss or for overall well-being,
Right.
or maybe you've heard the buzz and you just want to get the facts straight, you know?
For sure.
So we've got a whole stack of research and articles here, not just one perspective, so we can really try to get like a well-rounded view of all this.
That's great.
And you know what? One of the most fascinating things is that the benefits of fasting, they go way beyond, just shedding a few pounds.
Yeah, they do.
It's like hitting the refresh button on your whole system.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's so true. Because, what's so fascinating about fasting is that it really flips the script on how we usually think about food in our bodies.
Okay.
It's not about deprivation. It's more like giving your system a break,
I like that.
a chance to focus on repair and maintenance instead of constantly digesting.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. What exactly does it mean to fast?
Right.
Is it just, skipping meals, or is there more to it?
Well, at its core, fasting is simply going without food for a set period of time.
Okay.
But it's not about starving yourself.
Right.
It's more like strategically giving your digestive system a time out.
Okay.
And there's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah.
Intermittent fasting, for example, has become really popular.
Yes.
Have you heard of the 168 method?
Yeah, I've heard that one. You fast for 16 hours, and then you have an 8-hour window for eating.
Exactly.
It seems a little less daunting than, like, say, a full 24-hour fast.
Exactly. And that's just one approach.
Right.
There are various methods, each with its own nuances, but the underlying principle is the same,
Got it.
giving your body a break from digestion.
Okay, so speaking of benefits,
Yes.
let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Let's do it.
The weight loss aspect is probably what most people think of first.
Right.
How does fasting actually help with that?
Yeah. Well, think of it this way. Your body typically uses glucose from the food you eat for energy.
Okay.
But when you fast and those glucose stores start to dwindle, your body has to find another source of fuel.
Uh-huh.
And guess what it turns to?
What's that?
Stored fat.
Oh, wow.
It's like switching your car from gasoline to a reserve fuel tank.
I like that. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So that shift to burning fat is what leads to the weight loss.
Precisely. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Fasting also triggers a process called autophagy.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
I have heard of it, but I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah. So imagine your cells undergoing a deep spring cleaning. That's
Yeah.
essentially what happens during autophagy.
Wow.
This process helps clear out damaged components, making way for healthy new cells.
So it's like a detox on a cellular level?
Yes, and some researchers believe that activating autophagy regularly could be key to slowing down aging and reducing the risk of certain diseases.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is.
So it's not just about shedding pounds. It's almost like hitting the reset button at a cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the long-term implications of this cellular renewal?
Well, the research is still unfolding,
Sure.
but there's growing evidence that autophagy plays a role in everything from boosting the immune system to protecting against neurodegenerative diseases.
Wow.
It's like giving your body's natural repair mechanisms a supercharge.
That's amazing. Okay, so we've got the fat burning and the cellular cleanup.
Right.
What about blood sugar?
Yes.
I've heard fasting can have a positive impact there as well.
Fasting has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity.
Okay.
Now, insulin is like a key that unlocks your cells to let glucose in for energy.
Okay.
But sometimes those locks get rusty, so to speak, and the key doesn't work as well.
Right.
This is what we call insulin resistance, and it can lead to high blood sugar levels.
So fasting essentially helps to clean those locks and make the key work better.
Exactly. By improving insulin sensitivity, fasting helps your body regulate blood sugar more effectively. This is not only beneficial for people with diabetes, but it's also crucial for preventing metabolic issues in the long run, no matter who you are.
That's huge, especially in a world where, so many people struggle with blood sugar control these days.
It's true.
It sounds like fasting really does have a ripple effect throughout the entire body.
It does, and the benefits extend to your cardiovascular system as well.
Really?
Studies have shown that fasting can lead to lower blood pressure, cholesterol, and triglycerides.
Wow.
These are all major wins for a healthier heart.
So it's not just about shedding pounds, it's about improving overall health markers that contribute to a longer, healthier life.
Exactly.
That's pretty compelling, but it's not all about the physical, right?
Right.
What about the impact of fasting on our mental and emotional well-being?
That's where things get even more intriguing.
Well,
During fasting, your body produces ketones,
okay.
which are an alternative fuel source that your brain can actually use very efficiently.
Hold on, ketones. Can you explain what those are and how they benefit the brain?
Sure, think of ketones as a high-octane fuel for your brain.
Okay.
When you fast, your body starts breaking down fat for energy, and this process produces
Mm.
ketones. Now, unlike glucose, ketones can easily cross the blood-brain barrier, providing your brain with a steady and efficient energy source.
So instead of relying on glucose from food, your brain gets a power boost from ketones.
That's it.
Fascinating. What kind of effects does that have?
Many people report feeling sharper and more focused when they fast.
Really?
It's like that brain fog lifts, and they experience a surge in mental clarity.
I've definitely heard people mention that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not just about physical transformations. Fasting seems to have a ripple effect on our mental and emotional landscape as well.
hmm
What have you discovered about that?
Well, one thing that stands out is the link between fasting and emotional resilience.
Okay.
Think about it. Choosing to fast requires a certain degree of discipline and self-control, right?
Right. It's not always easy to resist those cravings.
Exactly. And that act of resisting, of making a conscious choice, strengthens your willpower.
Yeah,
It's like mental weight training.
I like that.
And that increased self-control can then spill over into other areas of your life.
Right.
You might find it easier to stick to your goals, manage stress, and make healthier choices overall.
So it's about building mental strength and self-awareness in the process, not just changing what you eat.
Precisely. And there's even evidence suggesting that fasting can have a positive impact on mood.
Really?
It might be due to the potential regulation of serotonin and dopamine levels, those feel-good chemicals in our brains.
So it's not a quick fix for, serious mood disorders,
Right.
but it could contribute to a more balanced mood for some people.
That's right. It's not a cure-all, but it's certainly an interesting piece of the puzzle when it comes to mental well-being.
Interesting.
And for those who struggle with food addiction or emotional eating, fasting can be a powerful tool for breaking those cycles and becoming more mindful of their relationship with food.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's about reclaiming control and making conscious choices about what and when you eat.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say someone is listening to this and thinking, all right, I'm intrigued. How do I actually get started with fasting?
Yeah.
What would you recommend as a first step?
Well, if you're new to fasting, the key is to start slow and listen to your body.
Okay.
Don't jump into a 24-hour fast right away.
Right.
The 168 method we talked about earlier is a great place to begin.
Yeah.
Remember, you fast for 16 hours, including overnight sleep, and then have an 8-hour window for eating.
Right.
It's a manageable way to ease into the practice.
That sounds pretty reasonable. So during that 16-hour fasting window, is it just water or are other beverages allowed?
Hydration is absolutely crucial during fasting. Yeah, plenty of water is a must. But you can also have herbal teas and black coffee, things that won't break your fast.
Okay.
In fact, staying well hydrated can actually make fasting easier by reducing those pesky hunger pangs.
Good tip. Now, I know people have a lot of concerns about fasting. Is
Yeah.
it safe? Right.
Will I feel weak and tired all the time?
Those are valid concerns, and we'll address them thoroughly after a quick break.
Okay, sounds good.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about some of those common concerns surrounding fasting. Things like safety and energy levels.
Right, because anytime you're making a change to your routine, especially when it comes to something as fundamental as eating,
Right.
it's natural to have questions.
Absolutely. So let's address that safety concern head on. Is fasting safe for everyone?
That's a really important question. And for most healthy individuals, short-term fasting, like the 168 method we discussed,
Right.
is generally considered safe.
Okay.
But as with any lifestyle change, it's crucial to listen to your body and consult with your doctor, especially if you have any underlying health conditions.
So are there certain groups of people who should avoid fasting altogether?
Yes, there are. For example, pregnant or breastfeeding women need consistent nutrient intake for both themselves and their babies. Individuals with certain medical conditions, like diabetes eating disorders or a history of low blood sugar, should definitely talk to their doctor before trying any type of fasting.
It sounds like personalized guidance is key, not just, blindly following trends.
Absolutely. It's about working with your healthcare provider to determine what's best for you. And even if you're perfectly healthy,
Okay.
there are still potential downsides to fasting that we need to acknowledge.
What kind of downsides?
Well, some people might experience side effects like headaches, dizziness, or fatigue, especially in the beginning, as their bodies adjust.
That makes sense. It's a pretty big shift for your system.
It is so paying attention to how you're feeling and adjusting your fasting schedule or breaking your fast if needed is crucial.
Right.
And while some discomfort is normal, any severe or persistent symptoms should definitely be discussed with your doctor.
So it's a bit of a balancing act, finding what works for you while staying in tune with your body's signals.
Exactly. Now, you also mentioned concerns about energy levels. There's a common misconception that fasting will leave you feeling drained and weak.
Yeah, that's when I've heard a lot of people worry they won't be able to function or exercise if they're not constantly fueling their bodies.
It's understandable, but the reality is often quite different.
Okay.
While some people might experience a dip in energy initially as their bodies adapt, many actually report feeling more energized once they get into a rhythm with fasting.
So it's almost like pushing through that initial hump and then experiencing a sort of energy boost.
Precisely. And remember, we talked about ketones earlier, those brain-boosting molecules produced during fasting.
Yeah.
They can actually contribute to increased mental clarity and focus,
Mhm.
which can make you feel more alert and energized overall.
That's really interesting. It challenges the conventional wisdom that we need constant food to fuel our bodies and minds.
It does.
Now, are there any long-term risks associated with fasting?
That's where things get a bit more nuanced.
Ah.
While research on the benefits of fasting is growing rapidly more, long-term studies are needed to fully understand the potential risks, especially for prolonged or frequent fasting.
So it's about finding that balance, not going to extremes, and incorporating fasting into your lifestyle in a way that feels sustainable and beneficial for you.
You've got it. And it's important to remember that fasting isn't a magic bullet.
Right.
It's not a replacement for a healthy diet and regular exercise.
It's more like another tool in your wellness toolbox, right?
Exactly.
Something you can experiment with and see how it fits into your overall approach to health.
Exactly. And like any tool, it needs to be used properly
Mhm.
and with careful consideration.
Okay, so we've covered the safety aspects, the potential downsides, and the importance of personalization. Now, let's talk about some practical tips for actually making fasting work.
Sounds good?
What are some of the challenges people typically face?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles seems to be managing hunger during those fasting windows.
Okay.
Any tips for navigating those cravings?
Yeah, because that's a big one.
Absolutely. One of the simplest but most effective strategies is to stay hydrated.
Okay.
Sometimes thirst can be mistaken for hunger,
Oh, that's interesting.
so make sure you're drinking plenty of water throughout the day.
That's a good reminder. We often forget to drink enough water even when we're not fasting.
It's true. Another helpful tip is to focus on consuming satiating foods during your eating windows.
You mean food that keep you feeling fuller for longer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think protein, healthy fats, and fiber-rich vegetables. These will provide sustained energy and prevent those blood sugar crashes that can trigger intense cravings.
Makes sense. And I imagine what you eat before a fasting period can also make a difference.
Absolutely. Ending your eating window with a balanced meal that includes protein and fiber will help you feel fuller for longer and set you up for success.
Now let's talk about timing. Is there an ideal time to fast? Like, are there certain windows that are more beneficial than others?
That's a great question. And the answer really depends on your individual lifestyle and preferences.
So again, there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
It's exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Some people find it easier to fast overnight and skip breakfast, while others prefer to have an early dinner and fast in the evening. It's all about experimenting and finding what feels most natural and manageable for you.
And speaking of experimentation, there are so many different fasting methods out there: intermittent fasting, alternate day fasting, extended fasts. It can be overwhelming trying to figure out which one to choose.
That's true. The best approach is often to start with a simple method like the 168 we've been talking about, see how your body responds, and then you can gradually adjust the fasting duration or explore other methods as you gain experience and become more comfortable.
So it's a journey of self-discovery, figuring out what works best for your body and your lifestyle.
Exactly. And remember, the goal is to find a sustainable pattern that you can incorporate to your life long term, not just a quick fix.
Now, one thing that I find really intriguing is the idea of combining fasting with other wellness practices.
Oh, absolutely. There's a growing interest in exploring the synergistic effects of combining fasting with things like exercise meditation or even cold therapy.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. Tell me more.
Well, for example, some studies suggest that exercising in a fasted state might enhance fat burning and improve insulin sensitivity even further.
Interesting. So working out on an empty stomach could potentially amplify those benefits.
Potentially, yes. But again, it's crucial to listen to your body, adjust your workout intensity as needed, and stay well hydrated.
Safety first, always. What about combining fasting and meditation?
That's another exciting area. Both practices have been shown to have positive effects on mental clarity, emotional regulation, and even stress reduction.
So it's like a double dose of mindfulness and self-awareness.
Exactly. And some people find that fasting actually enhances their meditation practice by promoting a deeper sense of stillness and focus.
It makes sense. It's like removing those external distractions and really tuning into your inner world.
Precisely. And then there's the whole world of cold therapy or cold exposure.
You mean like ice baths?
Yes. While more research is needed in this area, some early studies suggest that combining fasting with cold exposure might have additional benefits for boosting metabolism, reducing inflammation, and even improving mood.
Wow, that's incredible. It seems like there's so much potential for exploring these different combinations and seeing what works best for each individual.
Absolutely, and that's what's so exciting about this field. There's still so much to discover and learn about the power of fasting and its interactions with other lifestyle factors.
Well, I'm definitely feeling inspired to experiment and see how I can incorporate some of these practices into my own life. What about you?
Me too. It's fascinating to see how ancient practices like fasting are now being backed by modern science and integrated into a holistic approach to well-being.
Well said. Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, is there anything else you think our listeners should keep in mind when it comes to making fasting work for them?
I think one of the most important things is to remember that it's a journey, not a destination. It's about finding what works for you, listening to your body, and making adjustments along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about embracing the process, the challenges, and the triumphs. Fasting can be a powerful tool for transformation,
Yeah.
but it's not about perfection. It's about progress.
That's a great point. It's not about striving for some unattainable ideal. It's about finding what feels good and sustainable for you. And on that note, we'll wrap up part 2 of this deep dive. Join us again in part 3, where we'll delve into some real-life success stories, address some lingering questions, and leave you with some final food for thought. Until then, keep exploring and keep those questions coming. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring fasting right from the science to the practical tips, but beyond all that research and the how-tos,
Yeah.
I always find the human side of things really fascinating.
Yeah, me too.
Like, what's it actually like to embrace fasting and make it part of your everyday life?
Right. And one thing that consistently emerges from those stories
Yeah.
is the impact that fasting has on more than just our physical health. People talk about mental clarity, emotional well-being, even a sense of spiritual growth.
That's so interesting. So it really goes beyond, just the physical benefits.
It really does. Many
Uh-huh.
people describe a heightened sense of self-awareness, increased discipline, and a deeper connection to their bodies and their inner selves.
So it's like a journey of self-discovery almost.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about pushing your boundaries, challenging your assumptions about what your body can do,
Okay.
and ultimately finding a sense of empowerment.
I love that. No, I know we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive,
Yeah, we have.
but I'm sure our listeners still have some questions.
Of course.
So let's take a few minutes to address some common concerns that often come up.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
What are some of the top questions you've encountered?
Well, one that pops up a lot is, won't fasting slow down my metabolism?
Oh, yeah.
It's a natural concern, right?
Of course.
People worry that if they're not eating regularly, their bodies will go into starvation mode and start clinging to every calorie.
I understand the concern, but thankfully, the research paints a different picture. Short-term fasting, like the intermittent fasting we've been discussing, doesn't have a significant negative impact on metabolism.
So it's not going to backfire and sabotage weight loss efforts.
Yeah, not at all. In fact, as we discussed earlier, fasting can actually boost metabolism by shifting the body into that fat-burning mode.
That's good to know. Another common question is, can I still exercise while fasting? People are curious about whether it's safe and effective to work out on an empty stomach.
Yes, you can definitely exercise while fasting.
Okay.
And, some people find that working out in a fasted state actually enhances their performance and helps them tap into those fat stores more efficiently. But again, it's about listening to your body and not pushing yourself too hard.
So common sense and moderation are key, as with most things in life.
Exactly.
What about social situations? Those can be tricky to navigate when you're fasting.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to explain why you're not eating or drinking.
You're right. Those situations can be a little awkward.
Yeah.
But remember, you don't have to broadcast your fasting status to the world. You can always politely decline food or drinks without feeling obligated to give a detailed explanation.
That takes the pressure off, and if someone is genuinely curious, you can always share your experiences, in a way that feels comfortable for you.
Exactly. It's your personal journey, and you get to choose how much you share with others.
Well said. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, is there a final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with, something to really ponder as they explore, the potential of fasting for themselves?
I think the most important takeaway is this fasting is more than just a dietary intervention. It's an opportunity to cultivate a deeper connection with yourself, your body, your mind, your spirit.
I like that.
It's a chance to explore your limits, challenge your assumptions, and discover the incredible resilience and adaptability of the human body.
That's beautifully put. It's not just about the food, it's about the journey of self-discovery and empowerment that comes along with it.
Exactly. So if you're intrigued by the potential of fasting, approach it with curiosity, an open mind, and a willingness to experiment and discover what works best for you.
And remember, as with any significant lifestyle change, consulting with your doctor is always a wise step, especially if you have any underlying health conditions. This has been an amazing deep dive into the world of fasting. We've learned so much about the science, the benefits, the potential downsides, and the truly inspiring stories of transformation.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
It's clear that fasting isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, but a powerful tool that, when used thoughtfully and with careful consideration, can unlock so many possibilities for better health, well-being, and a deeper connection with ourselves. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.